Elena Hart's hands trembled as she sat in the private clinic's waiting room, 8 months pregnant and praying the past would stay buried. She'd hidden her pregnancy for months, from family, from friends, from the one man who could never know, Roman Vale, her ex-husband, the Mafia boss she'd fled to protect this child from a life of shadows and blood. But when the consultation room door opened and those cold gray eyes locked onto her swollen belly, Elena's carefully constructed fortress of silence shattered. Roman's jaw tightened, calculation replacing shock in seconds. He knew. And Roman Vale never surrendered what belonged to him. Before we begin this story of secrets, power, and impossible choices, please hit the like button and comment your city below so I can see how far Elena and Roman's journey travels across the world. The air conditioning hummed too loudly in the waiting room of Meridian Women's Health Center, a private clinic tucked into the quiet corner of the city's financial district. Elena Hart shifted in the plush chair, one hand resting protectively on her rounded stomach, while the other clutched her medical file. 8 months pregnant. 34 weeks, to be precise. And she'd managed to keep it secret for nearly 7 of them. The receptionist's voice carried across the minimalist space. "Ms. Hart, Dr. Morrison is ready for you." Elena rose carefully, feeling the weight she'd grown accustomed to over these long months. Her loose cashmere cardigan, deliberately oversized, perpetually strategic, fell in soft folds that had become her uniform. Hiding. Always hiding. The hallway to the examination room stretched before her, walls decorated with abstract art in soothing blues and grays. Everything about this clinic whispered discretion. That's why she'd chosen it. That's why she'd driven 40 minutes across the city every appointment, instead of using the perfectly good hospital 3 blocks from her apartment. Distance, anonymity, safety. She'd built her new life on those 3 pillars after the divorce. 6 months had passed since she'd signed the papers that ended her marriage to Roman Vale. 6 months since she had walked away from the penthouse with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. A glass palace that had felt increasingly like a beautiful cage. 6 months since she'd chosen freedom over luxury, uncertainty over control. The divorce had been surprisingly clean. Roman's lawyers had been efficient, almost indifferent. She'd kept wondering when the other shoe would drop, when he'd exercise the ruthlessness he was famous for. But the settlement came through fair and final. He'd let her go. That should have been her first warning. Roman Vale didn't let go. Not of assets, not of territory, not of people he considered his. But she'd been so desperate to believe in the possibility of escape that she'd mistaken his silence for acceptance. She'd taken her settlement, generous enough to start over, not generous enough to make her dependent, and disappeared into a life he couldn't track. New apartment, new phone number, new patterns. For 2 weeks after the divorce, she'd felt weightless, free. Then she'd missed her period. The pregnancy test had been positive on the first try, and the second, and the third because denial was a powerful thing when the truth threatened to destroy the fragile new world you'd just built. Elena had stared at those 2 pink lines and understood with crystal clarity Roman could never know. Not because he wouldn't want the child. That was the terrifying part. He would want it, would claim it, would build an impenetrable fortress around them both and call it love while it suffocated every choice she'd fought so hard to reclaim. Roman Vale believed in protection, in control, in eliminating threats before they materialized. He didn't believe in shared custody or co-parenting or any arrangement that didn't end with him holding every card. So Elena had made a choice that still haunted her in the dark hours before dawn: silence. She'd disappeared deeper, changed her last name legally. Hart had been her mother's maiden name, paid for everything in cash when possible, avoided social media entirely. Became a ghost to everyone who'd known her as Roman's wife. And for 7 months, it had worked. Dr. Morrison greeted her with a warm smile as Elena entered the examination room. "Elena, how are we feeling today?" "Tired," Elena admitted, settling onto the exam table. "But good. She's been active." "Excellent. Let's take a look." The routine unfolded with familiar comfort. Blood pressure, weight, the cool gel on her belly, the Doppler finding the rapid flutter of her daughter's heartbeat, a sound that never failed to make Elena's eyes burn with complicated emotion. Love, fear, guilt, Would her daughter ever forgive her for this choice? For cutting her father out before she was even born? Would Elena ever forgive herself? Everything looks perfect, Dr. Morrison said, helping Elena sit up. You're measuring right on track. Have you given any more thought to your birth plan? I want to stay as natural as possible, Elena said, pulling her cardigan back around herself. But I'm open to pain management if I need it. Dr. Morrison nodded, making notes. And support person? You'd mentioned you might have someone. It'll just be me, Elena interrupted softly. I'm doing this alone. The doctor's expression shifted to something compassionate but professional. You know we have doulas on staff if you'd like. I'll be fine. The lie tasted bitter. She wouldn't be fine. She'd be terrified. But she'd also be free. And that freedom was worth the price of fear. Elena was gathering her things when she heard it, a commotion from the waiting room. Raised voices, the receptionist's carefully modulated tone going sharp with stress. Sir, you can't just... This is a private medical facility. I don't give a fuck what it is. That voice, deep, controlled, absolutely unmistakable. Check your records. Elena Vale, she has an appointment right now. Elena's blood turned to ice. Dr. Morrison's brow furrowed. Is everything all right? But Elena couldn't answer, couldn't breathe, couldn't do anything except watch the examination room door like it was the gates of hell about to swing open. Vale. He'd said Vale, her old name, her married name, the name she'd legally shed along with the life that came with it. How did he know? How did he find her? The door didn't open. Instead, footsteps approached, measured, unhurried, absolutely certain of their destination. Elena knew that walk, had memorized it during 2 years of marriage. Roman never rushed. He simply arrived, inevitable as gravity. I need you to... Elena started, but she didn't know how to finish. Hide me? Lie for me? Neither would work, not against Roman. The door opened. Roman Vale stood in the threshold, and the room seemed to shrink around him. 6'3" of contained power in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Elena's monthly rent. Dark hair swept back from a face that belonged on Roman statues, all sharp angles and cold authority. Gray eyes that missed nothing. Those eyes dropped immediately to her stomach. The loose cardigan had fallen open when she'd stood. There was no hiding the pronounced curve of her belly, no explaining it away, no more secrets. For 3 seconds, Elena counted them, heartbeat thundering. Roman just stared. His expression didn't change, didn't soften or harden or show any emotion at all. That was more terrifying than rage would have been. Roman's control was legendary, his silence lethal. Dr. Morrison, he said without looking away from Elena, I need the room. Absolutely not, the doctor said firmly. Mr. Vale, it's fine, Elena heard herself say. Her voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. We need to talk anyway. Dr. Morrison looked between them, clearly unhappy. I'll be right outside. Elena, you just say the word. Roman stepped aside to let the doctor pass, then closed the door with a quiet click that sounded like a cell locking. Elena forced herself to stand straight, to meet his eyes, to not let him see the fear currently shredding her composure. How did you find me? Does it matter? Roman's voice was soft, conversational. He moved further into the room with that predator's grace she'd once found magnetic. Now it just triggered every flight instinct she possessed. How far along? That's none of your 8 months. Not a question. He'd done the math already, sharp mind calculating backward from the visible evidence. You were pregnant when we divorced. 2 weeks after, Elena said. No point in lying now. I didn't know. Bullshit. The word cracked like a whip. Roman's control slipped for just a second, a flash of something dark and dangerous in his eyes before the mask slammed back down. I didn't, Elena insisted. I found out after, and I chose... You chose to hide my child from me. Roman took another step closer. For 7 months. You chose to disappear, change your name, erase every connection to our life together. You chose to rob me of... He stopped, jaw clenched, hands flexing at his sides like he was physically restraining himself from reaching for her. Elena's heart hammered. I chose freedom, for both of us. You don't do anything halfway, Roman. You don't compromise. You don't share control. And I won't raise a daughter in a cage, no matter how gilded it is. A cage. Roman's laugh was bitter. Is that what you call safety? Protection? A life where you never had to worry about money or threats or... I never had to worry because you controlled everything. The words burst out, months of buried resentment fueling them. What I ate, where I went, who I saw, you tracked my phone, vetted my friends, made decisions about my body, my health, my life, without ever asking what I wanted. I kept you safe. You kept me suffocated. Silence crashed between them. Roman stared at her, and for the first time since he'd walked in, Elena saw actual emotion on his face. Not anger. Something worse. Hurt. I loved you, he said quietly. I know. Elena's eyes burned. But you loved me like you love everything else you acquire, Roman. Possessively, absolutely, with no room for me to exist as anything but yours. Roman looked away. His throat worked. When he spoke again, his voice had gone empty. Is it mine? The question punched the air from Elena's lungs. What? The baby. His eyes cut back to her, and there was nothing soft in them now. Is it mine? Or is that why you ran? Someone else's? Don't. Elena's hands curled into fists. Don't you dare insult me like that. You know exactly how many men I was with during our marriage. One. You. Only you. Then why? The rawness in his voice cracked something in her chest. Why hide this from me? Why not tell me? We could have... Could have what? Elena demanded. Stayed married? Shared custody? Co-parented like civilized people? You don't share, Roman. You possess. And I won't let my daughter grow up thinking that's what love looks like. Our daughter. Roman's correction was steel. And you're right. I don't share. Especially not my own child. Elena's stomach dropped. Roman, you're coming home. No. Yes. He pulled his phone from his pocket, already typing. I'm calling Dr. Reeves. He'll coordinate with whatever care you need. The car's downstairs. I said no! Elena's voice rose, panic flooding her system. You can't just... I'm not one of your business acquisitions you can reclaim with a phone call and a fucking car service. Roman's jaw tightened. You're carrying my child. That changes everything. It changes nothing. I left you. I divorced you. I built a life without you. And I'm keeping it. Are you? Roman pocketed his phone, studying her with those calculating eyes. Because from where I'm standing, you're 8 months pregnant, living alone in a city that eats vulnerable people alive, with no support system and no protection. You think you're safe? You think the world suddenly became less dangerous because you changed your name? I'm handling it. You're hiding. There's a difference. Roman moved closer, and Elena held her ground even as every instinct screamed to retreat. How much do you know about the clinic you chose? About the building security? About the other patients who come here? What are you talking about? Meridian Women's Health Center caters to a very specific clientele, Roman said softly. Wealthy, connected, discreet. You chose it because you thought anonymity would keep you safe. But Elena, you made yourself a target the moment you walked through those doors. Ice water flooded Elena's veins. You're just trying to scare me. I'm trying to wake you up. Roman's hand lifted, slowly, giving her time to pull away, and settled against her stomach. His palm was warm through her cardigan. Someone has been tracking pregnant women connected to powerful families. 3 women in the last 6 months. All of them disappeared for 48 hours. All of them came back traumatized, and none of them will talk about what happened. Elena's breath caught. That's not... It's real. And you're exactly the kind of target they're looking for. Pregnant, connected to power through me, isolated and vulnerable because you're trying so hard to hide. His hand pressed slightly firmer against the curve where their daughter rested. I found you in 2 days, Elena. 2 days. If I could find you, so can they. You're lying. But her voice shook. I'm not. Roman's other hand came up, cupping her face with a gentleness that felt like betrayal. And you know I'm not. You've always been able to tell when I'm lying. Damn him. He was right. Roman's lies were smooth and perfect for everyone else. But Elena had learned to read the micro-expressions, the tiny shifts in his voice. Right now, there was nothing but truth in his eyes. An absolute, terrifying certainty. Come home, he said again. Not to a cage, not to captivity, to safety. Let me protect you both until she's born. After that, we'll figure out the rest. But right now, today, you need to trust that I can keep you safe better than you can keep yourself. Trust? Elena's laugh was broken. You want me to trust you after you tracked me down and invaded my medical appointment? Yes. The simplicity of it should have been absurd. Instead, it landed like truth. Roman had never lied to her about what he was. A criminal who operated in shadows. A man who solved problems with money, influence, and when necessary, violence. He'd built an empire on ruthlessness and maintained it through fear. But he'd also never hurt her. Never raised his hand or his voice in anger. Never let any of the darkness that surrounded him touch her directly. He'd suffocated her with protection, drowned her in safety. But he'd never once made her afraid for her physical well-being. Until now. Until he'd planted the seed of fear about threats she hadn't even considered. I need to think, Elena whispered. You need to decide. Roman's thumb brushed her cheekbone. Because I'm not leaving without you. Not when you're carrying my daughter and someone out there is hunting pregnant women. You can walk out with me willingly, or I can make you. But either way, you're not staying isolated and vulnerable. That's not a choice. That's an ultimatum. It's reality. His expression softened fractionally. Elena, I know you hate me right now. I know you think I'm the monster in your story, but there are real monsters out there, and they don't care about your independence or your freedom. They care about leverage, and our daughter is the ultimate leverage against me. Our daughter. He kept saying it like an established fact, like this baby already belonged to both of them equally. Maybe she did. Elena closed her eyes, feeling tears leak from the corners. If I come with you, I need guarantees. Name them. My body, my medical choices. You don't override Dr. Morrison or any other doctor I choose. You don't make decisions about my health or my pregnancy without my explicit consent. Agreed. My independence remains intact. I'm not your prisoner. I'm not your wife. I'm the mother of your child, and that's a role we negotiate, not something you dictate. Roman's jaw clenched, but he nodded. Agreed. And no violence. Elena opened her eyes, meeting his directly. Unless there is absolutely no other choice, you handle threats the way you used to, with lawyers and money and influence. Not blood. That one made him pause. Roman's entire world was built on the implicit threat of violence, the promise that crossing him meant consequences delivered in shadows. I can't promise there won't be situations, he started. Then we have no deal. Elena stepped back, breaking contact. I won't let my daughter grow up watching her father solve every problem by hurting people. Either you prove you can protect us without becoming the thing I'm afraid of, or you walk away right now. The silence stretched. Roman stared at her, expression unreadable. Then he nodded. No violence unless absolutely necessary. I'll handle threats through legal and financial channels first. And I get to define absolutely necessary. His eyes flashed. Elena, those are my terms. Her hands settled protectively over her stomach. You want us in your life? You want to keep us safe? Then you prove that safety doesn't have to come soaked in blood. Roman's hands clenched and unclenched at his sides. Every line of his body radiated tension. This was costing him, Elena realized. Every concession felt like removing armor he'd worn so long it had become skin. Fine, he said finally. Your terms. All of them. Elena searched his face for deception, found only grim determination. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Roman pulled out his phone again, typing rapidly. Marcus is bringing the car around. We'll get your things from your apartment, then... Wait! Elena's stomach churned. What about Dr. Morrison? My appointment? I'll handle it. Roman moved to the door, opening it to find the doctor hovering protectively nearby. Dr. Morrison, Elena will be transferring her care to Dr. Reeves at Mercy Grace Hospital. I'll have my office coordinate the medical records transfer. I prefer to hear that from Elena herself, Dr. Morrison said coolly. Elena took a breath. It's fine. I'm making some changes. Thank you for everything. The doctor's expression made it clear she didn't believe this was fine at all, but medical ethics prevented her from physically restraining a patient who insisted on leaving. The next hour passed in a blur. Roman's car, a black SUV with tinted windows and a driver who looked more bodyguard than chauffeur, took them to Elena's apartment. She packed in a daze while Roman stood in her small living room, his presence making the space feel even more cramped. This apartment had been her sanctuary, her proof that she could survive outside his world. Now Roman's eyes cataloged every detail: the secondhand furniture, the locks on the door, the fire escape window she'd been so proud of for emergency exits. He didn't say anything, didn't have to. His face said it all. This is what you chose instead of me? By the time they pulled up to Roman's building, the glass tower in the financial district that had been their marital home, Elena felt hollowed out, exhausted, defeated. The penthouse looked exactly the same: floor-to-ceiling windows, minimalist furniture. A kitchen she'd rarely been allowed to cook in because Roman employed a private chef. The view of the city sprawling below like Roman owned it. Maybe he did. "The guest room is prepared," Roman said, setting her suitcase down. "Unless you'd prefer, the guest room is fine." He nodded stiffly. "Marcus will be stationed downstairs. Anton will cover the building's secondary entrance. I've already updated security protocols." Of course he had. Probably while she was packing. "Dr. Reeves will call tomorrow to schedule an appointment. He's the best perinatologist in the city. You'll like him." Elena just nodded, too tired to argue. "And Elena?" Roman waited until she looked at him. "Thank you for trusting me." She almost laughed. Trust implied choice. This felt more like surrender. But as she lay in the guest room that night, feeling their daughter kick against her ribs, Elena couldn't shake Roman's words. Someone had been targeting pregnant women like her. She thought she was being smart, staying hidden. What if she'd just been making herself an easier target? What if the real cage wasn't Roman's protection, but the isolation she'd built trying to escape him? Elena placed both hands on her stomach, feeling the strong movements beneath her palms. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the life inside her. "I'm so sorry. I don't know what the right choice is anymore." The baby kicked harder, like she was answering, or maybe just reminding Elena that time was running out. In 4 weeks, maybe less, she'd give birth, and then all the choices she'd been avoiding would become unavoidable. Roman's daughter would be born into this world, his world, whether Elena was ready or not. 3 days after Roman brought her back to the penthouse, Elena woke to the smell of coffee and something she couldn't immediately identify. Not the chef's usual breakfast preparation. This was different, warmer somehow, more personal. She pulled on a robe and padded barefoot into the kitchen, stopping in the doorway at the sight before her. Roman stood at the stove, still wearing dress pants and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, making what appeared to be scrambled eggs. His hair was slightly mussed, like he'd been running his hands through it. The morning light from the windows cast him in gold, softening the hard edges she'd grown so familiar with. He looked almost domestic. "You cook?" The words escaped before Elena could stop them. Roman glanced over his shoulder. "Occasionally, when the situation requires it." "And this situation requires it? You wouldn't eat anything the chef made yesterday, or the day before." He plated the eggs with surprising competence. "I remembered you used to like eggs this way, soft scrambled, little bit of cream cheese mixed in." Elena's throat tightened. She had liked them that way. During their marriage, it had been one of the few breakfast requests Roman actually remembered, back when he'd paid attention to small things about her. "I wasn't hungry," she said, moving to the breakfast bar. "You're eating for 2. You need to be hungry." Roman set the plate in front of her, along with whole wheat toast and a glass of orange juice. "Dr. Reeves called. Your appointment is tomorrow at 10. You could have asked me about my schedule first." "Do you have somewhere else to be?" The question stung because they both knew the answer. She'd built her isolation so carefully that she had nowhere to be. No job. She'd been living off the divorce settlement. No friends nearby. She'd cut contact to avoid Roman tracking her through them. No family. Her mother had passed 2 years ago, and her father had never been in the picture. She'd made herself invisible, and now that invisibility felt less like freedom and more like erasure. Elena picked up her fork, taking a small bite. The eggs were perfect, exactly how she remembered liking them, that somehow made everything worse. "I need to ask you something," she said after swallowing. These women you mentioned, the ones who were taken, what happened to them? Roman's expression shuddered. You don't need the details. Yes, I do. If I'm supposed to trust you, if I'm supposed to believe this threat is real, then I need to know what we're actually dealing with. For a moment, she thought he'd refuse. Roman's default setting was information control. Tell people only what they needed to know, maintain the upper hand through strategic silence. But then he leaned against the counter across from her, arms crossed. 3 women, all pregnant, all connected to men with power, a federal judge, a tech CEO, and a state senator. They were taken from locations they considered safe: a yoga studio, a grocery store parking lot, a friend's baby shower. Elena's appetite vanished, but she forced herself to keep eating. How long were they gone? 48 hours, give or take. They were returned physically unharmed, but psychologically destroyed. None of them will talk about what happened during that time, but all 3 lost their pregnancies within a week of being returned. The fork clattered from Elena's hand. They lost stress-induced complications. That's what the medical report said. Roman's jaw clenched. But we both know it wasn't just stress. Someone orchestrated a terror campaign designed to cause maximum psychological trauma. And they targeted the pregnancies specifically. Elena's hands moved to her stomach instinctively. Why? What's the point? Leverage. Fear. Maybe just cruelty. Roman's eyes were cold now, calculating. The families involved all made significant policy changes or business decisions within months of the incidents. The federal judge dropped a case that would have exposed connections to organized crime. The CEO killed a merger that would have disrupted certain supply chains. The senator withdrew support for a law enforcement expansion bill. So someone is using pregnant women as weapons. Elena's voice came out hollow. Take them, traumatize them, force the men in their lives to comply with demands. Yes. And you think I'm next? I think you were already being watched. Roman pulled his phone from his pocket, swiping through screens before turning it to show her. These are surveillance photos taken outside Meridian Women's Health Center. 4 different occasions over the last month. Elena stared at the images. They showed her entering and leaving the clinic. The angles were careful, professional. Whoever took these photos knew what they were doing. How did you get these? She whispered. I have contacts who monitor certain activities. When your name appeared on a watch list, they notified me immediately. A watch list. You changed your legal name, but you kept your phone number for the first month after the divorce. That was enough to track you. Then there was your lease application. You used my accountant as a professional reference. And the divorce settlement required you to maintain a bank account I could verify for alimony purposes, even though you never actually took alimony. Elena's hands clenched. You've been watching me this whole time. I've been making sure you stayed safe. Roman pocketed his phone. There's a difference. Is there? The anger felt good, clean, better than the fear churning in her gut. Because from where I'm sitting, you violated my privacy, tracked my movements, and only told me about this threat when you could use it to bring me back under your control. If I'd told you earlier, would you have believed me? Roman's voice remained maddeningly calm. Would you have accepted my protection willingly, or would you have run further, made yourself an even easier target? Elena opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. He was right. If he'd contacted her a month ago, warning her about some nebulous threat, she would have assumed he was manufacturing danger to manipulate her. She would have blocked his calls and disappeared deeper. I hate that you're right, she said finally. I know. Something almost like sympathy crossed Roman's face. For what it's worth, I didn't want it to be like this. I wanted you to come back because you chose to, not because you were afraid. We don't always get what we want. No, Roman agreed quietly. We don't. The silence that followed felt weighted with all the things they weren't saying. The marriage that had failed, the child they'd created despite that failure, the impossible situation they now found themselves navigating. Elena forced herself to eat another bite of eggs, then another. Not because she wanted to, but because Roman was right. She was eating for 2 now. Her daughter needed the nutrition even if Elena's stomach was twisted with anxiety. Tell me about the security protocols, she said finally. I want to know exactly what you've put in place. Roman's expression shifted to something more professional. business mode. Marcus and Anton are the primary details, both former military, extensive close protection training. They'll maintain visual surveillance whenever you leave the building. The penthouse itself has been updated with additional security measures, reinforced locks, updated cameras, panic buttons in every room. Panic buttons. Yes. They connect directly to my personal line and to building security. If you feel threatened in any way, you press one. Elena tried to imagine a scenario where she'd need to press a panic button in Roman's own home. The idea should have been absurd. Instead, it just made the fear more concrete. What about when the baby comes? She asked. What's the plan for the hospital? Dr. Reeves delivers at Mercy Grace. It's a private hospital with excellent security infrastructure. I've already made arrangements for a private suite on the maternity floor. Marcus will maintain position outside your room. Anton will secure the corridor access. No one gets in without clearance. That sounds like I'm going to give birth in a bunker. You're going to give birth in the safest environment I can create. Roman's voice went hard. These people target pregnant women specifically, Elena. The moment you go into labor, you're at your most vulnerable. I'm not taking chances. The conviction in his voice did something strange to Elena's chest. This wasn't the man who tried to control what she ate or who she saw. This was different. This was fear wearing the mask of control. Roman was afraid for her, for their daughter. Okay, she said softly. Okay, I trust your judgment on the hospital's security. Roman's shoulders dropped fractionally, tension easing. Thank you. The intercom buzzed, making Elena jump. Roman moved to answer it, his body language shifting instantly to alert. Yes? Mr. Vale, there's a Detective Morrison here to see you. Says it's about the Meridian situation. Roman's expression went blank. Send him up. Elena's pulse kicked. Who's Detective Morrison? Someone I've been working with. He's investigating the pattern of abductions. Roman moved to the door, then paused. Elena, when he gets here, let me do most of the talking. There are aspects of this situation that are complicated. Complicated how? The penthouse door opened before Roman could answer. A man in his early 50s stepped inside, wearing a rumpled suit and the kind of weathered expression that came from decades of seeing humanity's worst. His eyes swept the space, cataloging details, before landing on Elena with the intensity of a professional observer. Mr. Vale, he said, voice carrying the rough edges of too many late nights and cheap coffee. And this must be Elena. Detective Morrison? Roman's tone was cordial but guarded. We weren't expecting you until this afternoon. Got some developments I thought you should know about immediately. Morrison's gaze settled on Elena's stomach for just a second before returning to her face. Ma'am, I'm going to need to ask you some questions about your movements over the last month. Elena glanced at Roman, who gave a slight nod. What kind of questions? She asked. Morrison pulled out a small notebook. Did you notice anyone following you? Same car appearing multiple times? Someone showing unusual interest in your routine? No, nothing like that. What about phone calls, texts from unknown numbers? Emails that seemed off? Elena shook her head. I changed my number. I've been pretty isolated. That's actually what concerns me. Morrison flipped a page. The previous victims all reported feeling watched in the weeks before they were taken, but they couldn't identify any specific threat. You're saying you felt nothing. I was trying not to be found, Elena said. I wasn't really paying attention to whether anyone else was looking. Morrison's expression suggested this was exactly the wrong answer. Mr. Vale, can we speak privately? Anything you need to say, you can say in front of Elena. The detective's jaw worked. With respect, sir, there are investigative details that... She's the potential target, Roman interrupted, voice going cold. She has a right to know everything. Morrison looked between them, clearly unhappy. Then he sighed. Fine. We got a break in the case. One of the previous victims finally agreed to talk, not about what happened during her captivity. She's still too traumatized for that. But she remembered something from before she was taken. A man who bumped into her at a coffee shop. Seemed like an accident at the time, but she noticed him again later that day. And then he showed up in the background of a photo her husband took at dinner. He was tracking her, Elena said. We believe so. She worked with a sketch artist yesterday. Got us a decent composite. Morrison pulled out his phone, swiping to an image. Recognize him? The sketch showed a nondescript man in his 30s. Average height, average build, the kind of face that would disappear in a crowd. Brown hair, sharp eyes. Elena studied it carefully, searching her memory. I don't think so, but like I said, I wasn't really… Wait. The word came out sharp. Elena stared at the image, something nagging at the edge of her mind. Maybe. There was a man at the clinic 3 weeks ago. He was in the waiting room when I arrived and still there when I left. I remember thinking it was odd because usually only women wait in that area. Morrison's entire demeanor sharpened. Can you describe him? I barely looked at him, but he could have been this build, this coloring. Elena's heartbeat accelerated. Oh God, you think he was… We think he was casing his next target, Morrison said bluntly. And based on the timeline, that target is you. The room spun slightly. Elena gripped the breakfast bar for stability. Roman moved to her side immediately, his hand settling on the small of her back. Is there any indication of when they typically move from surveillance to action? Varies, could be weeks, could be days. Morrison pocketed his phone. The good news is you got her out of the vulnerable location. She's here with professional security. That changes the equation significantly. But they know where I am now, Elena said, voice thin. Don't they? If they were tracking me to the clinic, they saw Roman pick me up. They followed us here. Morrison's silence was answer enough. We've had no suspicious activity around the building, Roman said, but his voice was tight. No unfamiliar faces, no unusual patterns. That you know of. Morrison's expression was grim. These people are professionals, Mr. Vale. They don't make obvious mistakes. The fact that you haven't seen them doesn't mean they're not watching. Elena felt the walls closing in. The penthouse's glass walls suddenly felt like a fishbowl. Beautiful, transparent, impossibly exposed. Anyone with a high-powered lens could watch them from any of the surrounding buildings. What do we do? She asked. Morrison looked at Roman. You tell me. This is your world more than mine. Something passed between the two men, an understanding that made Elena's skin prickle with unease. Morrison wasn't just a detective investigating a case. He was something else. Someone Roman had history with. Connections that went deeper than civilian cooperation with law enforcement. We need to know who's funding this operation, Roman said. These aren't random acts. Someone is coordinating, someone with resources and reach. Working on it. We've tracked financial transactions between the families who made those policy changes, found some interesting patterns. Shell companies, offshore accounts, the kind of money laundering that requires serious infrastructure. Names? Nothing concrete yet, but we have suspicions. Morrison glanced at Elena, then back to Roman. Some of them might be close to home. Roman's expression went glacial. Explain. There's been chatter. Talk about someone inside your organization getting ambitious. Someone who thinks you've gone soft since the divorce. Morrison's tone was careful, like he was navigating a minefield. If they wanted to prove you're vulnerable, going after your pregnant ex-wife would be a hell of a power move. Elena's breath caught. Someone you work with is behind this? It's speculation, Roman said quickly. Nothing proven. But possible, Morrison added, which is why I'm here. If this threat is coming from inside your world, Mr. Vale, then traditional security measures might not be enough. We need to assume they know your patterns, your protocols, your weaknesses. The word weaknesses hung in the air like an accusation. Elena realized with sudden clarity what she represented to Roman's enemies: leverage, vulnerability. A crack in the armor of a man who'd built his empire on being untouchable. She'd made herself his weakness by carrying his child. I need options, Roman said. His hand remained on Elena's back, steady, grounding. Alternative locations, scenarios we haven't considered. There's a safe house upstate, Morrison said, off the grid. Only a handful of people know it exists. She could wait out the pregnancy there. No. Elena's voice was firm, despite the fear coursing through her. I'm not going into hiding for 4 more weeks. I'm not going to live in fear every second until this baby is born. Elena, Roman started. No, she repeated. If we run, they win. They've already stolen so much from those other women. I won't let them steal my last month of pregnancy. I won't give them that power. Morrison's eyebrows rose. Ma'am, With respect, your safety is important. I know. Elena turned to Roman, meeting his eyes directly. But you promised me this wouldn't be a cage. You promised me independence. I need you to keep that promise even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Roman's jaw clenched. She could see the war playing out behind his eyes, his need to protect versus his promise to respect her autonomy. Enhanced security, he said finally. Marcus and Anton plus 2 additional guards, rotating shifts. You don't go anywhere without advanced planning and full security protocols. And we install a panic room. A panic room? A secure space in the penthouse. Reinforced walls, independent communications, supplies. If there's a breach, you go there immediately. Elena wanted to argue, wanted to say it was excessive, paranoid, too much, but Morrison's expression told her it wasn't. This was the reality she'd stepped into when she came back to Roman's world. Okay, she whispered. Enhanced security, panic room. But I still want to live my life. Doctor's appointments, fresh air, something that doesn't feel like house arrest. We'll make it work, Roman said. His hand slid up to her shoulder, squeezing gently. I'll make it work. Morrison shifted his weight. There's one more thing. We need to consider the possibility that this is about more than just leverage. The previous attacks, the way they specifically targeted the pregnancies, there's a cruelty there that goes beyond tactical advantage. What are you saying? Elena asked, though part of her didn't want to know. I'm saying whoever's behind this enjoys causing pain, the psychological trauma, the loss. That's not just business, that's personal. And if they fixated on you as their next target, they're not just trying to manipulate Mr. Vale. They're trying to destroy you both. The words settled like stones in Elena's stomach. She thought about those other women, traumatized so badly they couldn't speak about it. Women who'd lost their babies to manufactured stress and terror. We won't let that happen, Roman said, voice like iron. Whatever resources we need, whatever it takes. Morrison nodded. I'll keep you updated. In the meantime, stay vigilant. Trust no one outside your immediate circle. And Elena? He looked at her directly. If you remember anything else about that man at the clinic, any detail, no matter how small, you call me immediately. He handed her a business card. Elena took it with numb fingers. After Morrison left, the silence in the penthouse felt suffocating. Elena stared at the city beyond the windows, watching people move through their normal lives far below. Going to work, meeting friends, existing without the weight of constant threat. I'm sorry, Roman said quietly. For what? For the life you gave up to be with me. For the danger that followed you even after you left. For all of it. His hand found hers, lacing their fingers together. You deserved better than this. Elena looked down at their joined hands. His were larger, rougher, marked with small scars she'd memorized during their marriage. Hands that could be gentle, but were more often closed into fists. Hands that had built an empire in shadows. I chose you once, she said, knowing what you were, who you were. I can't pretend I was some innocent victim you corrupted. You didn't choose this. This threat, this fear. No. But I chose to keep our daughter. I chose to hide her from you. And maybe those choices led here just as much as yours did. Elena squeezed his hand. I'm not saying you're not responsible for the life you've built, but I'm responsible for my choices too, including the one I made 3 days ago to come back. Roman's throat worked. I'll keep you safe, both of you, I swear it. I know you'll try. Elena pulled her hand free, wrapping both arms around her stomach. But Roman, you need to understand something. If it comes down to a choice, if you have to decide between protecting me and protecting our daughter, you save her. You hear me? Whatever happens, she comes first. That's not a choice I'll ever have to make. Promise me anyway. Roman stared at her, and for the first time since he'd walked into that clinic, Elena saw him truly afraid. Not of external threats. Of this. Of the possibility that he might fail her when it mattered most. I promise, he said finally. But Elena, I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure it never comes to that. Elena nodded, throat too tight for words. The baby kicked hard against her ribs, as if in protest or perhaps agreement. Elena placed her hand over the movement, feeling the life inside her assert its presence. Her daughter. Roman's daughter. A child who would be born into this complicated, dangerous, impossible situation, whether any of them were ready or not. Outside the windows, the city sprawled in indifferent beauty. Somewhere out there, someone was watching, planning, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And inside the penthouse, two people who'd failed at marriage tried to figure out how to succeed at protection, at partnership, at whatever fragile thing was growing between them that wasn't quite trust but wasn't quite surrender either. The eggs had gone cold on the breakfast bar. Elena's appetite had disappeared entirely. But she picked up the fork anyway and forced herself to take another bite. Because Morrison was right about one thing: they were at their most vulnerable now. And the only way through vulnerability was to keep moving forward, one small decision at a time. Even if every decision felt like it carried the weight of worlds. 2 weeks crawled by in a strange rhythm of heightened awareness and forced normalcy. The panic room was installed in what had been a storage closet off the master bedroom. Reinforced steel door, independent ventilation, satellite phone, enough supplies for 72 hours. Elena tried not to think about scenarios that would require her to hide in a glorified bunker for 3 days. Dr. Reeves turned out to be exactly what Roman had promised: competent, professional, and mercifully free of judgment about her complicated situation. He'd reviewed Dr. Morrison's files, examined Elena thoroughly, and pronounced both mother and baby healthy. 36 weeks now. The finish line approaching with terrifying speed. Elena stood at the penthouse windows on a Tuesday morning, watching storm clouds gather over the city. Rain was coming. She could feel it in the pressure change, in the way her back ached lower than usual. "You're up early," Roman said from behind her. She turned to find him in running clothes, hair damp with sweat. He'd started using the building's gym at 5 a.m. every morning, said it helped him think. Elena suspected it was more about burning off the anxiety that radiated from him like heat. Couldn't sleep. She's been active all night. Elena rubbed the side of her stomach where tiny feet had been pressing against her ribs for hours. Roman moved closer, and Elena noticed he didn't ask permission anymore before placing his hand over hers, feeling for movement. They'd fallen into small intimacies like this over the past 2 weeks, touches that weren't romantic but weren't entirely platonic either. The undefined territory of two people who shared a child but not a life. The baby kicked hard against their joined hands. Roman's expression softened in that way it only did when he felt his daughter move, like she was the one thing in the world he couldn't control and didn't want to. "Strong," he murmured. "Stubborn," Elena corrected, "just like her father. Let's hope she gets her mother's sense." Roman's thumb traced small circles over her stomach, probably unconscious of the gesture. "You have plans today?" "Actually, yes." Elena had been working up the courage to say this for 3 days. "I want to go shopping for the baby. Clothes, supplies, all of it. I've been putting it off and we're running out of time." Roman's hand stilled. "We can have everything delivered. I'll have my assistant compile a list of the best—" "No." Elena stepped back, breaking contact. "I want to do this myself, like a normal person preparing for a baby, not like someone in witness protection." "Elena, we discussed this. Public spaces are controlled risks, I know. That's why I'm telling you in advance so you can plan." She crossed her arms, feeling the familiar tension building between them. "Marcus and Anton can come. We'll go to that upscale baby boutique in the Harbor District, the one with private shopping appointments. You can have your people sweep the location first, whatever security theater you need. But I'm going." Roman's jaw worked. She'd learned to read that particular expression. He was calculating, weighing her safety against her sanity, trying to find an angle that satisfied both. "I'll make the arrangements," he said finally. "This afternoon, 2 hours maximum. Marcus, Anton, and 2 additional guards. The store will be cleared of other customers during your appointment." Elena wanted to argue about the excessive security, but she'd learned to pick her battles. "Thank you. I'm coming with you." Roman, non-negotiable. His voice carried that edge of finality she remembered from their marriage. "You want to go? I go with you. Those are the terms." Part of Elena wanted to fight it, to assert her independence just on principle. But another part, the part that had felt those surveillance photos, that knew someone dangerous was watching, actually felt relieved at the idea of Roman's presence. "Fine," she said, "but you don't get to take over and make decisions." "This is my shopping trip. You're just there." "Just there." Roman agreed, though his expression suggested he had no intention of remaining passive. The store, Petit Luxe, occupied a corner building in the harbor district with floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing artfully arranged nursery furniture and tiny designer clothes. By the time they arrived at 2 p.m., the space had been cleared as promised. Only the store manager remained, an elegant woman in her 50s named Gabrielle, who greeted them with professional warmth that didn't quite mask her curiosity about the security details stationed at every entrance. "Ms. Hart, Mr. Vale, welcome. I've prepared a selection based on the preferences your assistant shared." Gabrielle gestured toward the back of the store where a private consultation area had been arranged. Elena caught Roman's glance. "You had your assistant call ahead?" "I wanted to make the most of our time here," he said, not quite apologetic. Elena sighed but followed Gabrielle deeper into the store. The consultation area was beautiful. Soft lighting, comfortable seating, and racks of baby clothes organized by size and style. Cribs and changing tables were displayed like art installations. "I wasn't sure if you were planning a theme for the nursery," Gabrielle began, "so I pulled options across several aesthetics. Classic, modern, botanical. "I haven't actually set up a nursery yet," Elena admitted. The guest room at the penthouse had remained just that, a guest room. She'd been living in a state of temporary suspension, unable to fully commit to the reality of bringing her daughter into Roman's space. Gabrielle's carefully neutral expression suggested she found this odd for someone 36 weeks pregnant, but she recovered smoothly. "Well, we have plenty of time to sort that out. Why don't we start with the basics? Car seat, bassinet, clothing for the first few months?" The next hour passed in a blur of soft fabrics and impossible decisions. Did she want organic cotton or bamboo blend? Sleep sacks or swaddles? Elena found herself overwhelmed by choices that shouldn't have felt consequential but somehow did. Each onesie, each tiny hat represented a future she was still struggling to visualize. Roman, true to his word, hung back initially, but Elena caught him watching as she held up a white cotton sleeper with delicate embroidery along the collar. "What do you think?" she asked before she could stop herself. He moved closer, examining the garment with surprising attention. "It's nice. Practical." "That's not exactly enthusiastic." "You asked what I think. I think our daughter will grow out of it in 6 weeks, and the embroidery will make it hard to clean." Roman reached past her, selecting a plain white onesie from a nearby rack. "This is more practical." Elena stared at the boring utilitarian garment in his hand. "That's the saddest baby clothes I've ever seen." "It's efficient." "It's depressing." She grabbed 3 of the embroidered sleepers. "She's a baby, not a military recruit. She deserves something with personality. She deserves something that won't fall apart in the wash after 2 uses." Gabrielle cleared her throat delicately. "Perhaps a mix of both? Some special pieces for photos and outings, and some everyday basics?" They both turned to look at her, and Elena realized with sudden clarity that they'd been arguing about baby clothes like an actual couple, like parents navigating normal disagreements about their child. The realization made her chest tight. "Yes," she said quietly. "A mix makes sense." Roman set down the plain onesie without comment, but Elena saw something shift in his expression. He'd felt it too, that moment of almost normal. They moved through the rest of the basics with fewer conflicts. Car seat. Roman insisted on the highest safety ratings. Bassinet. Elena chose one that could be moved easily between rooms. Bottles, even though she planned to breastfeed because Dr. Reeves had advised having backup options. When Gabrielle stepped away to process their order, Elena sank into one of the plush chairs, exhausted. Shopping while extremely pregnant was apparently an Olympic sport. Roman settled into the chair beside her, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. "You're tired." "I'm fine." "Elena." He waited until she looked at him. "You don't have to pretend with me. If you need to rest, we'll rest." The gentleness in his voice did something dangerous to her carefully maintained emotional distance. This version of Roman, attentive, patient, present, was harder to armor herself against than the controlling man she'd divorced. "I just need a minute," she admitted. They sat in silence for a moment, surrounded by tiny clothes and furniture built for a life they hadn't figured out how to share yet. Outside the windows, the storm that had been threatening all day finally broke. Rain lashed against the glass in sheets. "We need to talk about the nursery," Roman said finally. "About where you'll be after the baby comes." Elena's stomach clenched. They'd been avoiding this conversation for 2 weeks. "I haven't decided yet. You're due in 4 weeks, give or take. We're running out of time to not decide." "I know that." She rubbed her temples, feeling a headache building behind her eyes. "I just don't know what the right answer is. Stay at the penthouse? Find my own place? Some kind of shared custody arrangement? Every option feels wrong. Or you could stop thinking about what feels wrong and start thinking about what works." Roman shifted to face her more fully. "We don't have to have everything figured out perfectly. We just need a plan for the immediate future." "Which is what?" "You stay at the penthouse until the threat is neutralized. We set up a proper nursery in the room next to yours. After the birth, we take it one day at a time." He paused. "No pressure. No expectations beyond what's best for our daughter." It sounded reasonable, practical, exactly the kind of logical solution Roman excelled at. It also sounded like a trap Elena couldn't quite identify. "What about after?" she asked. "After the threat is gone and she's here, and we can't hide behind crisis management anymore." "Then we figure it out." Roman's hand found hers, squeezing gently. "Elena, I'm not asking you to commit to forever. I'm asking you to commit to right now." "Can you do that?" Could she? Elena studied their joined hands, feeling the weight of the question. Right now was the penthouse and Roman's protection and a strange liminal space where they weren't together but weren't quite separate either. Right now was bearable, sustainable even. It was the future that terrified her. "Okay," she whispered, "right now. We'll figure out the rest as we go." Relief crossed Roman's face so clearly that Elena's chest ached. He'd been afraid she'd say no, afraid she'd insist on leaving despite the danger. Before either of them could say more, Anton appeared in the doorway to the consultation area. His expression was carefully neutral, but Elena had learned to read the security team's micro-expressions. Something was wrong. "Mr. Vale, we have a situation." Roman was on his feet instantly. "What kind of situation?" "There's a suspicious vehicle parked across the street. Black sedan, tinted windows. It's been there since we arrived and the occupants haven't exited." Elena's blood went cold. "Someone followed us?" "We don't know yet." Roman's voice was calm, controlled, but his body language had shifted entirely. He moved between Elena and the windows, blocking her from view. "How many occupants?" "At least 2 visible from this angle. Could be more." Anton's hand rested casually near his concealed weapon. "We're running the plates now, but I wanted to alert you immediately." "Gabrielle," Roman called without turning around. The store manager appeared quickly, eyes wide. "I need you to close the security shutters on all street-facing windows. Now." "But we never close the shutters during business hours." "Now," Roman repeated, voice going hard. Gabrielle moved quickly, pressing buttons on a wall panel. Heavy metal shutters began descending over the windows with a mechanical whir that sounded unnaturally loud in the sudden silence. Elena watched the daylight disappear behind steel, her heart hammering. "Roman, what's happening?" "Probably nothing, just a precaution." But his hand was on his phone, typing rapidly. "Marcus, what's your position?" Elena couldn't hear the response, but Roman's expression tightened fractionally. "Hold position. I want eyes on that vehicle until we have plate confirmation." He ended the call, turning back to Elena. "We're going to wait here until we know more." It could be completely innocent. Someone waiting to pick up a passenger, a delivery driver on break. Or it could be them. Elena's hands moved to her stomach, protective instinct overriding fear. The people who've been watching. If it is, they're not getting anywhere near you. Roman crouched in front of her chair, bringing them eye to eye. "Look at me. You're safe. This building is secure. We have trained professionals, and I will not let anything happen to you or our daughter. Do you believe me?" Elena wanted to say yes, wanted to feel the certainty that radiated from Roman like heat, but all she could think about were those other women. Women who'd probably felt safe right up until the moment they weren't. "I'm scared," she admitted. "I know." Roman's hands cupped her face, thumbs brushing her cheeks. "But fear is just information. It tells us to be careful, not to be paralyzed. We're being careful. We're doing everything right." His phone buzzed. Roman checked it, and something in his expression shifted to something darker. What? Elena demanded. The plates are fake. Vehicles registered to an address that doesn't exist. Roman stood, his entire demeanor changing. This was the man who'd built an empire in shadows, cold, calculating, dangerous. Anton, I want that vehicle approached and occupants identified. Non-confrontational, but firm. Marcus, you stay with Elena. No one gets past you. Marcus materialized beside Elena's chair like a shadow-given form. His presence should have been comforting. Instead, it just made the threat feel more real. Roman, wait! Elena started, but he was already moving toward the front of the store with Anton. She struggled to her feet, ignoring Marcus's attempt to keep her seated. Through a gap in the shutters, she could see Roman and Anton stepping out onto the rain-soaked street. Two additional security personnel Elena hadn't even noticed emerged from positions near the store entrance, flanking Roman as they approached the black sedan. For a moment, nothing happened. The sedan just sat there, windows too dark to see inside, engine idling. Then the driver's door opened. A man stepped out. Average height, brown hair, sharp eyes. Even from a distance, even through rain and partially obscured by security shutters, Elena recognized him. The man from the clinic, the one who'd been in the waiting room 3 weeks ago. Her breath caught. That's him. The man I told Detective Morrison about. Marcus's hand went to his concealed weapon. Stay back from the windows, Ms. Hart. But Elena couldn't look away. She watched Roman approach the man with Anton at his side, watched them exchange words she couldn't hear over the rain. The man's expression remained neutral, almost bored. Then he smiled. It was a terrible smile. Empty. Predatory. He said something to Roman, gestured toward the store, and Elena's skin crawled with the certainty that he was talking about her, about their daughter. Roman's body language went rigid. Even from a distance, Elena could see the rage he was barely containing, his hand clenched into a fist at his side. The man said something else, still smiling that awful smile. And Roman hit him. The punch was fast, brutal, perfectly aimed. The man's head snapped back and he staggered against the sedan. Blood immediately began streaming from his nose. No, Elena whispered. Roman, don't. But Roman was past hearing. He grabbed the man by his collar, slamming him against the car. Anton moved to intervene, but Roman shook him off. She could see Roman's mouth moving, words thrown like weapons. The man was laughing now, laughing through the blood, through whatever Roman was saying. Two more men emerged from the sedan, larger, clearly muscle. They moved toward Roman, but the security team intercepted them. Suddenly, the quiet street erupted into chaos. Bodies colliding, rain making everything slick and dangerous. Marcus grabbed Elena's arm. We need to move you to the back room, now. But Roman is handling it. My job is you. Marcus was already pulling her away from the windows, deeper into the store. Gabrielle appeared from somewhere, face pale with shock. What's happening? Should I call the police? No police, Marcus said firmly. Miss Hart, this way. Elena let herself be guided into a small office at the back of the store. Marcus positioned himself at the door, radio in hand, receiving updates in terse bursts of static-laced communication. She sank into the desk chair, hands shaking. This was what she'd been afraid of, not the abstract threat of surveillance and shadows. This, violence erupting in the middle of a rainy afternoon while she picked out baby clothes. Roman had promised, no violence unless absolutely necessary. But he'd hit that man anyway, lost control anyway, because the man had said something about her, about their daughter. Elena pressed both hands to her stomach, feeling her heart race beneath her ribs. The baby kicked, strong and insistent, like she could sense her mother's distress. It's okay, Elena whispered, trying to believe it. We're okay. Your father is just protecting us, she wanted to say. But the image of Roman's fist connecting with that man's face kept replaying in her mind. The rage in his body language, the way he'd grabbed the man and slammed him against the car. That wasn't strategy. That wasn't lawyers and financial pressure. That was violence, pure and simple. Marcus's radio crackled. Situation contained. Subjects retreating. No injuries to our personnel. Copy that, Marcus responded. Then to Elena, it's over. They're leaving. Elena closed her eyes, relief and anger warring in her chest. Is Roman He's fine. He's coming back inside now. A minute later, Roman appeared in the doorway. His shirt was soaked through with rain, hair plastered to his head. His right hand was already swelling, knuckles split and bleeding. Their eyes met across the small office. Elena saw the exact moment he realized she'd witnessed everything. Saw the violence she'd asked him to avoid. Elena, don't! She held up a hand, not ready for whatever explanation or justification he was about to offer. Just don't. Roman's jaw clenched. He looked at Marcus. Give us a minute. Marcus hesitated, then stepped out, closing the door behind him. The silence felt suffocating. Roman stayed by the door, dripping rainwater onto the carpet, bleeding hand held awkwardly at his side. He said, Roman started. I don't care what he said. Elena's voice shook. You promised me. No violence unless absolutely necessary. You promised. It was necessary. Was it? Or did you just lose control because he threatened your ego? Elena pushed herself out of the chair, using the desk for support. You hit him, Roman, in the middle of the street, in broad daylight, with witnesses. After you promised me you'd handle threats differently. You don't understand what he said. Then explain it to me. Use your words instead of your fists and explain what could possibly justify breaking your promise. Roman's control cracked. He said he'd been watching you for weeks. Said he knew your routines, your preferences, everything. Said you'd look beautiful in the photos they were planning to take. Photos while they... His voice broke. While they did things to you. Things I won't repeat. And he smiled while he said it. Smiled and asked if I wanted copies for my collection. Elena's stomach turned over. The air seemed to leave the room. Roman continued, words coming faster now like he couldn't stop them. He wanted me to know. Wanted me to understand exactly what they had planned. It wasn't just about leverage or power plays. It was about violating you specifically, destroying you specifically, because hurting you would hurt me more than anything else they could do. So you hit him, Elena said softly. So I hit him, Roman confirmed, and I'd do it again, 1,000 times, because some threats don't get handled with lawyers and financial pressure. Some threats only understand violence. Elena wanted to argue, wanted to hold firm to her principles about who she wanted Roman to be, but she couldn't stop thinking about those other women, the ones who'd been taken, who'd lost their babies, who couldn't speak about what had happened to them. What would she have wanted Roman to do if he'd been there? If he'd heard someone describe plans to violate them? Would she really have wanted restraint? I'm scared, she whispered. Not of you, of them, of what they want to do, of the fact that we can't stop them with security and protocols and careful planning. Roman moved toward her slowly, giving her time to retreat if she wanted. When she didn't, he closed the distance, wrapping his arms around her carefully, mindful of her stomach. We're going to stop them, he said into her hair. Not with violence alone, not with just strategy, with both. Whatever it takes. Elena leaned into him despite everything, feeling the solid warmth of his body, the steady beat of his heart. He smelled like rain and adrenaline. Your hand is bleeding on my sweater, she murmured. Sorry. But he didn't let go, and neither did she. They stood like that for a long moment, two people trying to figure out how to protect a child who wasn't even born yet from threats they couldn't fully see or understand. Finally, Elena pulled back enough to look up at him. We need to get your hand looked at, and then we need to call Detective Morrison. He should know about this. Already done. He's meeting us back at the penthouse. Roman studied her face. Are you okay? You and the baby? We're fine. Terrified, but fine. Elena touched his injured hand gently. This is going to need stitches. I've had worse. That's not comforting. Something almost like a smile crossed Roman's face. No, I suppose it's not. The drive back to the penthouse was tense and silent. Elena watched the city slide past through rain-streaked windows, hyper-aware of the security vehicles bracketing them front and back. The shopping trip that was supposed to feel normal had turned into just another reminder of how abnormal her life had become. When they finally reached the penthouse, Dr. Reeves was already there, summoned by Roman's ever-efficient assistant to deal with his injured hand. Detective Morrison arrived 10 minutes later, looking grim. Tell me exactly what happened, Morrison said once they were all settled in the living room. Doctor. Reeves worked on Roman's hand while he talked, cleaning the split knuckles and preparing sutures. Roman recounted the encounter in clinical detail, his voice empty of emotion now. The sedan, the man, the threats, his reaction. Morrison's expression grew darker with each word. When Roman finished, the detective was silent for a long moment. "The description matches our composite," he said finally. "We need to bring him in for questioning. Did you get plate numbers for any of the vehicles?" "All three. Already sent to your department." Roman didn't flinch as Dr. Reeves pushed a needle through his skin. "The plates will be fake, but maybe you'll find something useful." "Maybe." Morrison didn't sound hopeful. "What he said to you, the specific threats, that's escalation. They're getting bolder. That worries me." "It should," Roman said flatly. "They're not just watching anymore. They're taunting, testing responses." "Which means they're preparing to move." Morrison looked at Elena. "How are you holding up?" "About as well as you'd expect for someone who just learned people are planning to photograph her torture." Elena's voice came out sharper than intended. "Sorry, Don't apologize. You have every right to be angry." Morrison pulled out his notebook. "I need to ask, have you noticed any other suspicious activity? Phone calls, strange emails? Anyone approaching you?" Elena shook her head. "Nothing, but I've barely left the penthouse in 2 weeks." "That's probably saved your life," Morrison said bluntly. "The previous victims were all taken from semi-public locations, parking lots, gyms, places where they'd let their guard down because they felt safe." "So what do we do?" Elena asked. "I can't live in a bunker for the rest of my pregnancy. I can't stay locked in here forever." "You can for 4 more weeks," Roman said. "That's not living. That's hiding. That's surviving until our daughter is born, and we can handle this properly." Roman's tone brooked no argument. "After the birth, everything changes. You're not pregnant anymore, which means you're not as attractive a target. The time pressure is gone. We can be strategic instead of reactive." Elena wanted to argue, but exhaustion and fear were catching up with her. Her back ached, her feet hurt, and somewhere deep in her bones, she knew Roman was right. 4 more weeks. She could survive 4 more weeks. The baby would be born, and then this particular nightmare would shift into something else, something they could fight without risking an innocent life still growing inside her. "Okay," she said quietly. 4 more weeks. But Roman, after that, we need to actually deal with this. Not just hide from it. Deal with it." Roman's eyes met hers, and she saw dark promise there. "After our daughter is born safely, I will end this. Permanently. You have my word." The certainty in his voice should have frightened her. Instead, it just made her tired. Morrison stayed another hour coordinating with Roman's security team, discussing protocols and contingencies. Dr. Reeves finished stitching Roman's hand and left detailed care instructions neither of them would probably follow. By the time everyone left, night had fallen. The storm continued outside, turning the windows into dark mirrors that reflected only their own trapped images. Elena stood at those windows anyway, watching lightning fork across the sky. Behind her, she heard Roman moving through the penthouse, checking locks and security systems with methodical precision. 4 more weeks. 28 days. It felt like both an eternity and no time at all. The baby kicked, and Elena placed her hand over the movement. "Your father is trying very hard," she whispered. "I hope you appreciate that someday." "Talking to yourself?" Roman appeared beside her, his bandaged hand hanging at his side. "Talking to her?" Elena gestured to her stomach. "Explaining why her parents are so complicated." "What are you telling her?" "That we're doing our best, that love isn't always simple, that protection sometimes looks like violence, and prison sometimes looks like safety." Elena turned to face him. "That she's wanted despite all the mess." Roman's expression softened. "She is, more than anything. I know." And Elena did know. Whatever else was broken between them, Roman's love for their unborn daughter was absolute, uncomplicated in a way his love for Elena had never been. Maybe that would be enough. Maybe their daughter could be the thing they both got right, even if they got everything else wrong. Outside, thunder rumbled. Inside, the panic room waited in its reinforced silence. And somewhere in the city, dangerous men planned terrible things. But for now, in this moment, Elena let herself believe in the fragile safety of glass towers and armed guards, and a man who'd broken his knuckles defending her honor. It wasn't the life she'd imagined, but it was the one she had. And in 4 weeks, everything would change again. The contraction started 3 days before Elena's due date, at 4:30 in the morning. She woke to a tightening across her belly that stole her breath, different from the Braxton Hicks she'd been experiencing for weeks. Sharper, more insistent, real. Elena lay in the darkness of the guest room, one hand on her stomach, counting. The contraction peaked, held, then slowly released. She checked her phone. 4:32 a.m. She should wake Roman, should alert Dr. Reeves, should activate the carefully constructed birth plan they'd spent 2 weeks perfecting. Instead, she stayed quiet, breathing through the next contraction when it came 12 minutes later. Then another at 11 minutes, her body preparing itself for the work ahead with methodical precision. By 6 a.m., the contractions were 8 minutes apart, and Elena couldn't hide them anymore. She found Roman in the kitchen, already dressed despite the early hour, reading something on his tablet. He looked up when she entered, and his expression shifted immediately. "How long?" he asked. "Since 4:30. They're regular now. 8 minutes apart." Elena steadied herself against the counter as another contraction began its slow build. "I think this is it." Roman was moving before she finished speaking, phone already in his hand. "I'm calling Dr. Reeves. Marcus, we need the car ready in 15 minutes. Anton, activate hospital protocols." The security team materialized from their various positions throughout the penthouse. Elena watched the controlled chaos unfold around her, feeling strangely detached from it all. This was happening. After 9 months of fear and hiding and impossible choices, their daughter was coming. Dr. Reeves answered on the second ring, his voice alert despite the hour. Roman put him on speaker. "Contractions started at 4:30 a.m., Roman reported with military efficiency. "Currently 8 minutes apart, lasting approximately 45 seconds each. No water breakage yet. No bleeding or unusual symptoms." "And how is Elena feeling?" Dr. Reeves' gentle question cut through Roman's clinical recitation. Elena took the phone. "Scared. Excited. Like my body knows what it's doing even if I don't." "That's perfectly normal. At 8 minutes apart, you have some time still. I'd like you to come to the hospital now, though, given the security situation. We'll get you settled in your suite and monitor progression." Dr. Reeves paused. "Elena, you're going to do beautifully. I'll meet you there in 30 minutes. The drive to Mercy Grace Hospital passed in a blur of city streets still dark with pre-dawn shadows. Elena sat in the back of the SUV with Roman, breathing through contractions that were already intensifying. 7 minutes apart now. Then 6. "Too fast," Roman muttered, hand tight around hers. "It's progressing too fast." "First babies usually take a while," Elena said, though her own anxiety was building. Everything she'd read said first labors were long, grueling marathons. This felt more like a sprint. Mercy Grace rose before them, a modern building of glass and steel that looked more like a luxury hotel than a hospital. Security met them at a private entrance, whisking them through corridors empty of other patients. The private maternity suite was on the 4th floor, accessible only by key card and guarded by hospital security augmented by Roman's team. Dr. Reeves was waiting, along with 2 nurses who introduced themselves as Sophia and Marie. The suite itself was beautiful, more like a high-end hotel room than a hospital. Warm lighting, comfortable furniture, medical equipment disguised behind elegant cabinetry. "Let's see where we are, Doctor," Reeves said once Elena had changed into a hospital gown and settled on the bed. The examination revealed what Elena had suspected. "You're already at 5 centimeters. This baby is in a hurry." 5 centimeters. Halfway there. Elena's laugh came out shaky. "So much for a long first labor." "Every birth is different. Your body is doing exactly what it needs to do." Dr. Reeves pulled off his gloves. "Given the rapid progression, I'd estimate you'll be ready to push within 4 to 6 hours. How's your pain level?" "Manageable, for now." Elena gripped Roman's head as another contraction hit. They were stronger now, demanding all her focus. "We have options for pain management whenever you're ready. No pressure either way." Dr. Reeves checked the monitors. "Baby's heartbeat is strong and steady. Everything looks excellent." The next hours blurred together in a haze of increasing intensity. Contractions that had been manageable became overwhelming. Elena paced the room, draped herself over the bed, tried every position the nurses suggested. Roman stayed at her side through all of it, steady and present in a way that transcended all the complicated history between them. "Breathe with me," he murmured during a particularly brutal contraction. "In through your nose, out through your mouth." Elena wanted to snap at him that she knew how to breathe, but the steadiness of his voice actually helped. She matched her breathing to his, letting the contraction crest and fall. 7 centimeters, Sophie announced after another check. "You're doing amazing." But the pain was intensifying beyond what Elena had prepared for. She'd wanted to stay natural, to experience everything fully. Now she was reconsidering that choice with every fiber of her being. "I think I want the epidural," she gasped. "Okay, let me page the anesthesiologist." Sophie moved to the phone while Marie adjusted Elena's monitors. Roman's expression was tight with concern. "Whatever you need. No judgment." "You look terrified," Elena observed between contractions. "I am terrified. Watching you in pain and not being able to fix it." His voice cracked. "I've never felt this helpless." "Welcome to childbirth. We're all helpless here." The anesthesiologist arrived 20 minutes later, an eternity when contractions were coming every 3 minutes. The epidural placement required Elena to stay perfectly still during a contraction, which felt like an impossible ask, but Roman held her steady, hands firm on her shoulders. "Almost done," the anesthesiologist said. "You're doing great." The relief when it came was profound. The contractions continued, but the searing pain dulled to manageable pressure. Elena could breathe again, could think. "Better?" Roman asked. "So much better." Elena squeezed his hand. "Thank you for not judging me for changing my mind." "Elena, you could change your mind about everything, and I wouldn't judge you. You're bringing our daughter into the world. However you need to do that is the right way." The words settled something in Elena's chest. Maybe they couldn't make a marriage work. Maybe they'd never figure out how to be together without destroying each other. But in this moment, he was exactly what she needed. By noon, Elena was at 9 centimeters. "Doctor." Reeves checked her progress and nodded with satisfaction. "Almost there. Another centimeter, and we can start pushing." "How much longer?" Elena asked. "Could be 30 minutes, could be 2 hours. Babies come on their own schedule." Dr. Reeves's phone buzzed. He checked it, and his expression shifted subtly. "Roman, can I speak with you outside for a moment?" Roman's entire body went tense. "Whatever it is, say it here." Dr. Reeves glanced at Elena. "It's about security." "Then she definitely needs to hear it." Roman's hand tightened around Elena's. "What's happened?" The doctor sighed. "Detective Morrison called. There's been suspicious activity around the hospital. A vehicle matching the description of the sedan from the boutique incident was spotted in the parking garage 30 minutes ago." Elena's breath caught. "They're here? They followed us?" "We don't know for certain," Dr. Reeves said quickly. "Hospital security is investigating. Detective Morrison is on his way. But Roman, we need to make a decision about security protocols." "Lock down the floor," Roman said immediately. "No one in or out without explicit clearance. Double the guard at the elevator and stairwell access. And I want—" "Roman." Elena's voice cut through his tactical planning. "I'm about to have a baby. I can't think about this right now. I need you to handle it so I can focus on bringing our daughter into the world safely." Their eyes met. Elena saw the war playing out behind Roman's controlled expression. His need to protect versus her need for him to be present. "I'll handle it," he said finally. "Marcus, Anton, come with me. Sophie, Marie, you stay with Elena. Do not open that door for anyone except Dr. Reeves or me. Understood?" The nurses nodded. Roman kissed Elena's forehead quickly, then was gone, taking his security team with him. Sophie moved to Elena's side. "How are you doing with all this?" "I'm trying not to think about the fact that dangerous people might be in this building while I'm about to give birth." Elena closed her eyes, feeling tears leak from the corners. "This isn't how it's supposed to be." "I know, honey." Sophie's hand was gentle on her arm. "But you're safe here. Mr. Vale won't let anything happen to you." Elena wanted to believe that, wanted to trust that Roman's control extended far enough to keep them protected even now. But she kept thinking about those other women, the ones who'd been taken despite precautions, despite powerful men trying to keep them safe. 20 minutes later, Dr. Reeves returned. Security sweep came up empty. The vehicle was gone by the time they reached the garage. Could have been coincidence, wrong make and model, or it could have been them testing our response time. Which means they know exactly where we are and how we react. Elena's stomach churned with fear that had nothing to do with labor. Which means we're prepared, Dr. Reeves corrected gently. Let me check your progress. 10 centimeters. Fully dilated. Time to push. Roman returned just as Dr. Reeves was explaining the process. His expression was grim but controlled. Status? Elena asked. Building is secure. Every access point monitored. Detective Morrison is coordinating with hospital security and my team. No one gets to this floor without going through multiple checkpoints. Roman moved to her side, taking her hand. You can focus on our daughter now. I've got everything else. Elena wanted to argue, wanted to point out that he couldn't control everything, couldn't guarantee safety, couldn't protect them from every possible threat. But another contraction hit, different now, heavier, carrying an overwhelming urge to push. Okay, Dr. Reeves said, positioning himself. Elena, with the next contraction, I want you to push. Give me 10 seconds of steady pressure. Sophie and Marie will count for you. The next hour was the hardest physical work Elena had ever done. Push, breathe, push again. Her entire world narrowed to the effort of bringing her daughter into the world. Roman stayed at her shoulder, offering ice chips and encouragement and his hand to crush when the pain overwhelmed even the epidural's numbing effect. I can see her head, Doctor, Reeves announced. You're so close, Elena. One more big push. Elena bore down with everything she had left, felt the burning stretch, the impossible pressure, and then relief, release, and a sound that made her heart stop and restart, her daughter's first cry. It's a girl, Dr. Reeves said unnecessarily, lifting a tiny, perfect, furious creature into the light. Born at 1:18 p.m., Elena, she's beautiful. They placed her on Elena's chest, warm, wet, screaming with impressive lung capacity. Elena's hands came up automatically, cradling the impossibly small body, feeling the rapid flutter of her daughter's heartbeat against her palm. Oh, Elena breathed. Oh, hello. The baby quieted at her voice, dark eyes blinking up at her with unfocused awareness. She was perfect. 10 tiny fingers, 10 tiny toes, a shock of dark hair plastered to her small skull. Elena looked up at Roman and found him frozen, staring at their daughter with an expression she'd never seen before. Complete devastation. Absolute wonder. Fear and love so intertwined, they'd become the same thing. Do you want to hold her? Elena asked softly. Roman's throat worked. I might drop her. You won't. Elena shifted carefully, offering their daughter up. She needs to meet her father. Roman's hand shook as he accepted the tiny bundle. He held her like she was made of glass and explosives, terrified and reverent. The baby made a small sound, not quite a cry, more like a question. And Roman Vale, feared crime boss, ruthless businessman, man who'd built an empire on cold calculation and strategic violence, broke completely. Tears ran down his face unchecked. His shoulders shook. He bent over their daughter, pressing his forehead to hers with infinite gentleness, and sobbed. I've got you, he whispered to the baby. I've got you. Nothing will ever hurt you. I swear it. I swear it. Elena's own tears came freely now. She'd known Roman loved their daughter in theory, but watching him shatter at actually meeting her, seeing every defense crumble in the face of 8 pounds of helpless humanity, was something else entirely. This was who Roman could be when he let himself be vulnerable. When he loved something more than he loved control. Doctor. Reeves and the nurses worked quietly around them, delivering the placenta, cleaning Elena up, performing all the necessary medical procedures while the new family existed in their own bubble. Finally, Sophie approached. We need to take her for measurements and the standard newborn checks. Just for a few minutes, then she's all yours. Roman looked like she'd asked him to cut off his own arm. She stays where I can see her. Of course, we'll do everything right here in the room. Sophie's voice was patient, understanding. I just need to borrow her for about 5 minutes. Reluctantly, Roman handed their daughter back. He moved immediately to Elena's side, threading his fingers through hers. 7 pounds, 6 ounces, Marie announced. 20 inches long, perfect APGAR scores. She's absolutely healthy. They measured and weighed, checked reflexes and counted fingers and toes, all while the baby protested the indignity of being handled by strangers. Then Sophie wrapped her in a soft blanket and placed her back in Elena's arms. "Have we decided on a name?" Dr. Reeves asked. Elena looked at Roman. They'd discussed names briefly, but never settled on anything definite. Too many conversations that required talking about the future, about shared decisions, about being parents together. "Sophia," Roman said quietly. "If you agree." Sophia Vale. Elena tested the name, looking down at their daughter. Sophia. It meant wisdom, strength. She'd need both to navigate the complicated world she'd been born into. "Sophia Hart Vale," Elena said. "Both our names, both our families." Roman's expression flickered with something Elena couldn't quite read. "Both our names," he agreed. For the next hour, they existed in a bubble of new parent exhaustion and wonder. Sophia nursed for the first time, awkward and uncertain, but ultimately successful. Elena had never felt anything like the fierce protectiveness that flooded her as her daughter fed, small hands kneading against her chest. Roman watched with that same devastated expression, like every small thing Sophia did rewrote something fundamental in his soul. "I thought I understood," he said quietly. "Before she was born. I thought I understood what it would feel like to love her. But I didn't. I had no idea." "No one does," Elena said, "until it happens. How do people survive this fear that something might happen to her?" Roman's hand traced Sophia's tiny fingers where they curled against Elena's skin. "How do they function knowing the world is full of dangers they can't control?" "They do what we're going to do. Love her, protect her as best we can, and trust that it's enough." Roman's laugh was bitter. "Trust has never been my strong suit." "I know." Elena shifted Sophia to her shoulder, rubbing the baby's back in small circles. "But you're going to have to learn. Because she deserves parents who can give her room to grow, not just walls to keep her safe." Before Roman could respond, a sharp knock sounded at the door. Marcus's voice came through. "Mr. Vale? Detective Morrison is here. Says it's urgent." Roman's expression hardened instantly. "I'll be right back." "Roman," Elena started, but he was already moving to the door, slipping out with the controlled urgency of a man walking into battle. Sophie appeared at Elena's side. "Let me take Sophia so you can rest. You've been through a lot today." Elena wanted to refuse, wanted to keep holding her daughter forever, but exhaustion was catching up with her, and Sophie was right. She needed to recover. She let the nurse take Sophia to the small bassinet beside the bed, close enough to touch, but separate. Then she lay back against the pillows, body aching in ways she'd never imagined, and tried not to think about whatever urgent news had brought Detective Morrison here on the day their daughter was born. Outside the room, she could hear low voices, urgent tones, Roman's carefully controlled responses. Something was wrong, something beyond the general wrongness of their situation. Elena must have dozed because she woke to find Roman standing over Sophia's bassinet, staring down at their sleeping daughter, with an expression that made Elena's chest tight. "What happened?" she asked. Roman looked up. "Morrison has a lead, one of the men from the sedan. Someone in his organization recognized him. Small-time operator who works as a contractor for various interests. He's willing to talk in exchange for immunity." "That's good, isn't it? We can finally know who's behind this." "Maybe." Roman's jaw was tight. "Or maybe it's exactly what they want us to think. Maybe they're feeding us information to manipulate our response." Elena struggled to sit up. "You don't trust it." "I don't trust anything when it comes to our daughter's safety." Roman moved to her bedside, helping her adjust the pillows. "Morrison wants me to meet with this informant. Tonight. Get the information directly." "Absolutely not." The words came out sharp, immediate. "You're not leaving us. Not now." "Elena." "No, Roman. Our daughter is hours old. We're in a hospital with people who want to hurt us somewhere nearby. You're not walking out that door to chase information that might be a trap." Elena's hand found his, gripping tight. "You promised to protect us. You can't do that if you're not here." Roman's expression was torn. If this informant has real information, if he can tell us who's funding this operation, we can end it. Permanently. I can make sure Sophia never has to live with this threat hanging over her. Or you walk into an ambush and our daughter grows up without a father. Elena's voice broke. Is that the protection you promised? Leaving us vulnerable while you play hero? That's not what I'm... Roman stopped, jaw clenching. Morrison would provide security. Multiple agents. Controlled environment. I don't care. I need you here. Elena hated how desperate she sounded, but fear had stripped away any pretense of independence. Please, Roman, whatever information this man has can wait until morning. Don't leave us tonight. The silence stretched between them. Elena watched Roman war with himself. His need to act, to control the situation, to eliminate threats through force and strategy versus her simple request for his presence. Finally, he pulled out his phone, typing quickly. I'm telling Morrison to get what he can from the informant and brief me in the morning. I'll stay here. Relief flooded Elena so completely that fresh tears spilled over. Thank you. Roman set his phone aside and moved closer, carefully sitting on the edge of her bed. You're right. Sophia needs me here more than I need to chase leads that might go nowhere. I'm sorry I even considered it. You were trying to protect us. I was trying to control an uncontrollable situation. There's a difference. Roman's hand cupped her face, thumb brushing away her tears. I need to get better at recognizing which battles require action and which ones require presence. Elena leaned into his touch, exhausted beyond measure. We'll figure it out. Together. Together, Roman echoed, though the word seemed to cost him something. That night, Elena woke every 2 hours to feed Sophia, each time finding Roman awake and watching them both. He'd pulled a chair close to the bed, positioned so he could see both his daughter and the door, never fully relaxing into sleep. You need to rest, Elena murmured during one of the feedings. I will, when you're both home safe. Roman, you're going to burn out if you stay on high alert forever. Then I burn out. Better than missing something. Better than letting my guard down at the wrong moment. His eyes were dark, haunted. I keep thinking about those other women, how they must have felt when it happened, how their families must have felt after. I can't... His voice cracked. I can't let that be you. Be her. Elena finished feeding Sophia and carefully transferred the sleepy baby to Roman's arms. He accepted her automatically now, that initial terror of holding her giving way to a careful competence. Look at her, Elena said softly. She's here. She's healthy. She's ours. Right now, in this moment, we won. Whatever happens tomorrow or next week or next year, we have this moment. Can't that be enough? Roman stared down at Sophia, who yawned and made small snuffling sounds in her sleep. His expression was unbearably tender. It should be enough, he whispered. She should be enough to make everything else disappear. But all I can think about is how fragile she is. How many things could go wrong? How many threats I can't see coming? That's parenthood. That's what every new parent feels, even without the complications we have. Elena reached out, her fingers brushing Roman's where they cradled Sophia. But you can't protect her from everything, Roman. Nobody can. At some point, you have to accept that and just love her anyway. I don't know how to do that, except that I can't protect her from everything. Then learn. For her sake, learn to let go of perfect control and embrace good enough. Elena's eyes burned with exhaustion and emotion. Because if you try to protect her from everything, you'll end up suffocating her the same way you suffocated me. And I won't let you do that to our daughter. The words landed like stones in still water, rippling outward. Roman's expression shuddered, then cracked open again. You're right, he said finally. You're right, and I hate it, but you're right. He looked at Elena directly. Teach me. Show me how to be the father she deserves instead of the one I know how to be. Elena's breath caught. In all their time together, through marriage and divorce and forced reconciliation, Roman had never asked her to teach him anything, had never admitted he didn't already know the answer. I don't have all the answers either, she said, but we can figure it out together. If you're willing to actually share control instead of just saying you will. I'm willing to try. Roman's voice was rough. For her, I'm willing to try anything. Sophia stirred in his arms, small face scrunching up in pre-cry warning. Roman immediately began the gentle rocking motion Elena had shown him, murmuring soft words in Italian that she couldn't quite catch. The baby settled, mollified by her father's attention. And Elena, watching them in the dim hospital light with armed guards outside the door and unknown threats lurking in shadows, felt something shift. Not hope exactly, that felt too fragile for their situation, but possibility. The chance that maybe, somehow, they could figure out how to be parents together even if they couldn't be partners. It would have to be enough, because their daughter was here now, real and perfect and desperately vulnerable. And whether Elena and Roman succeeded or failed at everything else, they would both fight to their last breath to keep her safe, even if they didn't yet know how to do that without destroying each other in the process. Morning came with Detective Morrison's return, his expression grim enough that Roman met him in the hallway rather than let him into Elena's room. Through the partially open door, Elena could hear their low voices, the careful way Morrison delivered whatever news he'd brought. She held Sophia against her chest, the baby's warmth a comfort against the cold dread building in her stomach. Something had changed, something that made Roman's shoulders go rigid, and his voice dropped to that dangerous quiet that meant he was calculating violence. When Roman finally returned, his face was a careful mask. "What did Morrison say?" Elena asked. Roman moved to the window, staring out at the city awakening below. The informant gave up a name. Victor Molnar. He's been operating a leverage operation for the last 18 months, targeting families with power and resources. The pregnant women were just one aspect of it. Molnar. Elena tested the name, finding it unfamiliar. "Who is he?" "Someone I used to do business with, 5 years ago before we were married." Roman's hands clenched into fists at his sides. "I cut ties when his methods became too brutal even for my standards. Apparently he's been holding a grudge." "So this was personal? Against you?" "Yes." Roman's voice went flat. "Morrison has his location, a warehouse in the industrial district. He's gathering a tactical team now to bring Molnar in." Elena's arms tightened around Sophia. "And you want to go with them?" "I want to end this myself." Roman turned to face her, and the cold rage in his eyes made her breath catch. "This man has been planning to hurt you for months, to hurt our daughter. He's the reason you've been terrified, the reason we can't have a normal life. Yes, I want to be there when they take him down. Morrison has a tactical team, trained professionals. You don't need to." "I do need to." Roman moved closer, his intensity filling the space between them. "Elena, every instinct I have is screaming at me to hunt down the person who threatened my family and eliminate him. I've spent weeks controlling those instincts, channeling them into legal strategies and security protocols, but now we have him. Now I can actually do something." "By doing what? Going to this warehouse and beating him unconscious? Shooting him? Becoming exactly the man I was afraid you were?" Elena's voice rose despite her attempt to stay calm. Sophia stirred against her chest, sensing the tension. Roman's jaw clenched. "I'm not going to kill him. I'm going to watch Morrison arrest him and make sure he never sees daylight again." "You say that now, but what happens when you're standing in front of the man who wanted to torture me? Who planned to cause enough trauma that I'd lose our baby?" Elena's eyes burned. "You hit that man outside the boutique for just describing what they planned. What will you do to the one who orchestrated it all?" The silence that followed was answer enough. "You can't go," Elena said firmly. "Because I know you, Roman. I know what you're capable of when someone threatens what's yours. And if you go there, if you let yourself become that person, you'll never fully come back. And Sophia deserves a father who isn't haunted by whatever he does in that warehouse. She deserves a father who protects her from monsters. She has that, right here." Elena shifted Sophia to one arm, reaching out to touch Roman's chest with her free hand. "You don't have to hunt down every threat personally to be her protector. You just have to be here, present, choosing us over your need for revenge." Roman covered her hand with his, pressing it harder against his heart. "And if I let Morrison handle it and something goes wrong? If Molnar escapes or makes a deal or finds some way to continue being a threat? Then we handle it together, legally, through the system, the way people who aren't criminals do." Elena's voice softened. "You promised me, Roman. You promised you'd try to be different. This is what different looks like. Trusting other people to handle justice while you stay here with your daughter." Roman's eyes closed. It's not enough. Just staying here while someone else, it has to be enough. Because the alternative is you going there, losing control, and either ending up arrested or becoming someone our daughter will eventually fear. Elena pulled her hand back. So you choose. Right now. You choose what kind of father you want to be. The weight of the question hung between them. Elena watched Roman war with himself, saw the struggle playing out across his features. The need for vengeance versus the promise of presence. The familiar comfort of violence versus the terrifying unknown of restraint. Finally, Roman pulled out his phone, typing quickly. I'm telling Morrison to proceed without me. I'll review the arrest reports and coordinate legal strategy from here. Elena's relief was so profound she had to blink back tears. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. I'm going to hate every second of not being there. Roman pocketed his phone, moving to look down at Sophia. But you're right. She deserves better than a father who can't control his worst impulses. The hours that followed were tense. Morrison sent updates every 30 minutes. Tactical team in position, warrant executed, building secured. Finally, at just past noon, the message they'd been waiting for came through. Victor Molnar in custody. No shots fired, clean arrest. Roman read the message aloud, his voice carefully empty of emotion. Elena watched him process it, saw the frustration and relief warring on his face. It's over, she said softly. The threat is gone. The immediate threat is gone. Molnar still has connections, people who might continue his work. Roman stopped himself, jaw clenching. But yes, the primary threat is neutralized. That afternoon, they were cleared to go home. The drive back to the penthouse felt different somehow, lighter, despite the armed security still flanking them. Sophia slept through the entire journey, blissfully unaware that the man who'd wanted to destroy her family was now in federal custody. The penthouse had been transformed during their hospital stay. The room next to Elena's guest room had been converted into a nursery. Soft gray walls, white furniture, a crib positioned where morning light would fall gently across it. Shelves held the items from their shopping trip, organized with meticulous care. When did you? Elena started. I had the team work on it while we were at the hospital. I wanted everything ready when we brought her home. Roman carried the infant car seat with exaggerated care, like Sophia might shatter if he moved too quickly. I wasn't sure about the color scheme. If you hate it, we can repaint. It's perfect. And it was. Peaceful, welcoming. A room that spoke of hope rather than fear. They spent the first night home learning Sophia's rhythms, feed every 2 hours, diaper changes that seemed impossibly frequent, the specific cry that meant hunger versus the one that meant discomfort. Roman hovered constantly, desperate to help but uncertain how. You can pick her up, Elena said at 3 a.m., watching him stand frozen beside the bassinet while Sophia fussed. You're not going to break her. I might. But Roman reached down anyway, lifting their daughter with exaggerated gentleness. Sophia quieted immediately at his warmth, small body molding to his chest. See? Natural. Elena watched them from the bed, exhaustion pulling at her bones but unable to look away from the sight of Roman cradling their daughter in the pre-dawn darkness. She's so small, Roman murmured. How is it possible that something this small can make everything else seem insignificant? That's the magic of babies. They rewrite your entire sense of scale. Elena patted the bed beside her. Come here, bring her. Roman settled carefully beside Elena, Sophia secure in his arms. For a moment they were just a family, exhausted, uncertain, but together. Morrison called while you were sleeping, Roman said quietly. Molnar's arraignment is tomorrow. Federal charges, kidnapping, conspiracy, extortion. His lawyers are already trying to make a deal, but the prosecutor thinks they have enough evidence to guarantee significant prison time. How long? 20 years minimum if convicted on all counts. Possibly more depending on what else they uncover during investigation. Roman's thumb traced gentle circles on Sophia's back. It's not death, it's not permanent elimination, but it's justice through the system, the way you wanted. Elena heard the cost in his voice, how much it went against his instincts to let the legal system handle something so personal. Thank you for trusting the process, she said. Thank you for making me better than I naturally am. Roman's eyes met hers over Sophia's small head. I don't know if I can sustain it forever, Elena. This restraint, this control. There might be situations where I fall back on old instincts. I know. I'm not asking for perfection, just effort, just the willingness to try. Elena shifted closer, resting her head on his shoulder. We'll figure it out as we go. They sat like that until Sophia needed to feed again, this small moment of peace carved out of chaos and fear and impossible circumstances. The next weeks fell into a rhythm that was both exhausting and strangely wonderful. Sophia thrived, growing visibly stronger each day. Elena healed from birth, her body slowly returning to something recognizable. And Roman learned to be a father with an intensity that would have been frightening if it weren't so clearly motivated by love. He changed diapers with military precision, mastered the specific bouncing motion that calmed Sophia when she was fussy, spent hours just watching her sleep, like he was trying to memorize every detail of her face. Detective Morrison visited weekly, bringing updates on Molnar's case and the broader investigation into the leverage operation. Other victims were coming forward. Evidence was mounting. The case was solid. He's going away for a long time, Morrison said during one visit, accepting the coffee Roman offered. And we've identified most of his network. They're all being brought in. All of them? Roman's tone suggested skepticism. The ones we can prove were involved in criminal activity, yes. Some of the peripheral players might slip through, but the core operation is finished. Morrison studied Roman carefully. You did the right thing, letting us handle this. I know it wasn't easy. It was impossible, Roman said bluntly, but necessary. My daughter deserved a father who could control himself. Morrison's expression softened. She's lucky to have you, both of you. After he left, Elena found Roman standing in the nursery, watching Sophia sleep in her crib. 2 months old now, starting to smile and make cooing sounds that melted both her parents into puddles. What are you thinking about? Elena asked softly. The future. What kind of life we can give her now that the immediate threat is gone. Roman glanced at her. You've been staying here because it was safe. Now that it is actually safe, you don't have to anymore. If you want your own place, want to work out custody arrangements. Is that what you want? Elena interrupted. For me to leave? No. The word came out too fast, too raw. But I promised you freedom. Promised this wouldn't be a cage. And I keep wondering if the only reason you're still here is because you're afraid to leave. Elena moved to the crib, looking down at their sleeping daughter. I'm still here because this is working. It's complicated and messy, and we're making it up as we go. But it's working. Sophia has both her parents under one roof. We're figuring out how to be a team instead of adversaries. Why would I want to disrupt that? Because you divorced me for good reasons. Those reasons don't disappear just because we have a child together. No, they don't. Elena turned to face him. I divorced you because you were suffocating me, because you couldn't separate protection from possession, because every decision you made came from a place of control rather than partnership. I'm still working on that. Every day I'm working on it, but I'm not cured. I still want to make decisions for you, still want to lock down every variable, but you don't. Elena moved closer. You catch yourself. You ask my opinion. You defer to my judgment on things like feeding schedules and sleep training, even when it goes against your instincts. You're trying, Roman. That's what matters. For how long? How long until I slip back into old patterns? Roman's voice carried genuine fear. How long until I start making unilateral decisions again and we're right back where we started? Then I'll call you on it. We'll fight about it. We'll work through it. Elena reached for his hand. I'm not saying we should remarry or pretend the past didn't happen, but I'm saying that we're building something new here, something that might actually work if we're both willing to keep trying. Roman pulled her closer, careful of her still healing body. I don't deserve you. Don't deserve the patience you've shown or the chances you've given me. Probably not, Elena agreed with a small smile. But you deserve your daughter, and she deserves to have both her parents actively choosing to make this work. Sophia stirred in her crib, making the small sounds that meant she'd wake fully in the next few minutes. They both turned to watch her, this tiny person who'd changed everything without trying. I have something to show you, Roman said after a moment. Something I've been working on. He led Elena to his office, a room she rarely entered, filled with monitors and files and the infrastructure of his business empire. But today, the desk held architectural plans spread across its surface. "What is this?" Elena asked, moving closer to examine the detailed drawings. "A house, outside the city. About an hour's drive." Roman pointed to various features on the plans. 4 bedrooms, proper yard, garden space, windows that don't feel like fish bowls. "I bought the land 3 weeks ago and commissioned the design." Elena stared at the plans, heart hammering. "You want to leave the penthouse?" "I want to give Sophia room to grow up, space to play, air that doesn't taste like exhaust and ambition." Roman's hand traced the outline of what looked like a kitchen. "And I want to give you a home that doesn't come with memories of our failed marriage, a place we build together instead of one I built to contain you." "Roman, the property is in both our names, equal ownership, equal decision-making power over the design and construction." He pulled out another document. "I also had my lawyers draw up a co-parenting agreement, custody arrangements, financial responsibilities, decision-making protocols, everything laid out clearly so you never feel trapped again." Elena's throat tightened as she scanned the document. It was thorough, fair, protective of her rights while acknowledging Roman's desire to be an active father. "You did all this in 3 weeks?" "I've been thinking about it since the day she was born, about what kind of life I wanted to give you both. This seemed like the best way to honor what you wanted while keeping us together as a family." Roman's expression was vulnerable in a way she'd rarely seen. "If you hate it, we'll figure out something else. But Elena, I don't want you to stay because you feel obligated or because it's convenient. I want you to stay because this is where you choose to be." Elena set down the co-parenting agreement, turning to face him fully. "You're really willing to give me this much control? This much legal protection against your worst impulses?" "I'm willing to prove that I've changed, or at least that I'm capable of changing when properly motivated." Roman gestured to the plans. "Say yes. Let me build us a home. Let me show you that I can create something beautiful instead of just controlling what already exists." From the nursery, Sophia's cries grew louder, not distressed, just awake and ready to demand attention. Elena smiled despite the tears threatening to spill. "I need to think about it," she said. "This is a big decision. Take all the time you need. The offer stands regardless." Roman moved toward the door. "I'll get Sophia. You should rest while you can." Elena watched him go, then turned back to the architectural plans. A house with actual rooms instead of glass boxes. A yard where a little girl could play without armed guards watching from the windows. A kitchen designed for family meals rather than catered events. It was everything she'd dreamed of when she'd left Roman, except now he was offering to build it with her instead of for her. Over the next month, Elena spent hours reviewing the plans, suggesting changes, arguing with Roman about everything from window placement to bathroom fixtures. They fought about practical things, budget, timelines, construction materials, with the passion of people who actually cared about the outcome. It felt like partnership, like building something together instead of one person dictating terms. Sophia grew stronger, started sleeping in longer stretches, began reaching for things with determined focus. She smiled at both her parents with equal enthusiasm, already adept at wrapping them both around her tiny fingers. Elena watched Roman with their daughter and saw the transformation continue. He was patient when Sophia cried, gentle when she needed comfort, playful in ways Elena had never imagined he could be. He made ridiculous faces to elicit giggles. He sang off-key Italian lullabies. He let Sophia grab his hair and pull without flinching, and slowly, carefully, Elena felt her guard dropping. Not all the way. There was too much history for that, but enough to let herself imagine a future that wasn't defined by fear or control. The house was completed in 6 months, rising from the earth like a promise made manifest. Wood and stone and glass that opened onto sky instead of trapping it. Rooms that felt spacious without being cavernous. A nursery with windows overlooking a garden that was still just dirt and potential. They moved in on a Saturday in early autumn, Sophia now 6 months old and impossibly curious about her new surroundings. The security system was state-of-the-art but subtle. No guards stationed visibly, no panic rooms disguised as closets, just the baseline protection any wealthy family might install. Elena stood in the master bedroom, separate from Roman's room down the hall, maintaining boundaries even as they built shared space, and felt something in her chest expand. This was hers. Legally, emotionally, practically hers. Not a guest room in someone else's home. Her space. Her choice. What do you think? Roman appeared in the doorway, Sophia balanced on his hip. Their daughter babbled happily, reaching for the light fixture. I think it's perfect, Elena said honestly. I think you actually listened to what I wanted and built it. I had good motivation. Roman moved into the room, Sophia's small hand tangled in his shirt. Happy family is better than controlled family. Took me long enough to figure that out. Better late than never. Elena reached for Sophia, who came willingly, patting her mother's face with enthusiastic, if uncoordinated, affection. And you're still figuring it out. We both are. Does that mean you'll stay? Not just for now, but actually stay? Roman's voice carried an uncertainty Elena had never heard before. Help me raise our daughter here instead of splitting time and negotiating custody through lawyers? Elena looked around the room again. Her room. In their house. Where Sophia would grow up with both parents present, if imperfect. I'll stay, she said. Not because I have to. Not because I'm afraid. But because this is where I choose to be. The relief that crossed Roman's face was profound. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just keep trying. Keep choosing us over control. Keep being the father our daughter deserves. Every day, Roman promised. Every single day. That night, after Sophia was asleep in her new nursery and the house was quiet around them, Elena found Roman standing in the backyard. The garden was still mostly dirt and planning, but the bones of something beautiful were there. Planning your empire of roses? She asked, moving to stand beside him. Planning Sophia's childhood, where the swing set will go, where we'll plant the vegetables she can help tend, where she'll learn to ride a bike. Roman's smile was soft. All the normal things I never thought I'd get to experience. Normal is overrated, but this... Elena gestured to the house behind them, to the space they were building together. This is pretty good. Better than good. Roman's arm came around her shoulders, and Elena let herself lean into his warmth. This is what I should have given you from the start. Partnership instead of possession. Freedom instead of control. You're learning. That counts for something. They stood together in the cooling air, watching lights blink on in distant houses. A neighborhood full of families living their own complicated lives. Normal people with normal problems. And maybe, Elena thought, they could be that too. Not normal exactly. Roman would always carry shadows from his past, and Elena would always be wary of surrendering too much of herself. But functional. Loving. Good enough. Inside the house, Sophia began to cry. Both parents moved immediately toward the sound, racing each other to their daughter's nursery. Roman won by half a step, scooping Sophia up and beginning the bouncing motion that usually soothed her. But tonight, she was inconsolable. Crying turned to wailing, small face red with distress. What's wrong? Roman's panic was immediate. Is she hurt? Should I call Dr. Reeves? She's fine, just fussy. Elena took Sophia, checking her diaper, her temperature, all the usual culprits. Nothing obviously wrong. Sometimes babies just cry. But why? What does she need? Maybe nothing. Maybe she just needs to cry it out. Elena began her own rocking rhythm, humming softly. Not everything can be fixed, Roman. Sometimes you just have to be present while someone you love is uncomfortable. Roman watched them, clearly struggling with this concept. I should be able to do something. You are doing something. You're here. You care. That's enough. Elena met his eyes over Sophia's small head. This is what I needed you to understand, that presence matters more than solutions. That love isn't about eliminating all discomfort. It's about staying anyway. Understanding flickered across Roman's face. I'm still learning that. I know. We both are. Sophia's cries were diminishing now, turning to hiccups and tired whimpers. But we're learning together. That's what matters. They put Sophia down once she'd settled, then stood together watching her sleep in the way new parents do, cataloging every breath, every tiny movement. I love you, Roman said quietly. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that anymore, if we've moved past that kind of declaration, But I need you to know. Elena's breath caught. They hadn't talked about love since the divorce, hadn't named the complicated feeling that existed between them. More than partnership, less than romance, something entirely their own. I love you too, she said finally. Not the way I did when we got married. Not that naive, all-consuming thing that ignored all the warning signs, but something steadier, something that acknowledges what you are and chooses you anyway. Is that enough? That steady thing? It's more than enough, because it's real. It's chosen. It's not based on who we wish the other person was, but who we actually are. Elena turned to face him fully. We might never be a fairy tale, Roman. We might always be complicated and messy and struggling to balance autonomy with connection. But we're a family. That's its own kind of magic. Roman pulled her close, careful and reverent, like she might disappear if he held too tight. Thank you for giving me another chance. For giving us another chance. Thank you for earning it. For doing the hard work of changing instead of just promising to. Elena rested her head against his chest, hearing his heartbeat beneath her ear. And thank you for our daughter, for this house, for choosing to build something new instead of trying to reclaim what was broken. They stood like that until Sophia stirred again, ready for her late-night feeding. Elena pulled away reluctantly, moving to lift their daughter. I've got her, Roman said. You rest. I'll bring her to you when she's ready to eat. It was such a small thing, such a normal offer of help, but it represented everything that had changed between them. His willingness to support rather than control, her willingness to accept help without feeling diminished. Later, after Sophia had been fed and changed and was sleeping again, Elena found Roman still in the nursery. He'd pulled the rocking chair close to the crib, positioned so he could watch over their daughter while she slept. You don't have to guard her all night, Elena said softly. I know, but I want to, just for tonight, our first night in our new home. Roman's smile was gentle. Tomorrow, I'll be more reasonable. Tonight, let me be excessive. Elena moved to stand behind the chair, her hands settling on his shoulders. Okay, tonight you can be excessive, but tomorrow we practice balance. Tomorrow we practice balance, Roman agreed. And they did. Tomorrow and all the days after, they practiced the delicate art of loving each other without losing themselves, of protecting their daughter without suffocating her potential, of building a family from the broken pieces of a failed marriage and the fierce determination to do better. It wasn't perfect. They still fought about boundaries and control and the hundreds of tiny decisions that made up daily life. Roman still struggled with his need to manage every variable. Elena still struggled with trusting that the safety he offered wouldn't become a cage. But they kept trying, kept choosing each other and their daughter, kept building a life that honored both their needs instead of sacrificing one for the other. 6 months later, on Sophia's first birthday, Elena stood in their garden watching Roman teach their daughter to chase butterflies through the flowering plants they'd cultivated together. Sophia shrieked with laughter, stumbling on unsteady legs, absolutely fearless in her pursuit of beauty. Victor Molnar was serving 25 years in federal prison. His network was dismantled. The threat that had consumed so much of their fear had been reduced to legal proceedings and cautionary tales. But the real victory, Elena thought, wasn't the elimination of external danger. It was this, a child laughing in a garden, surrounded by parents who'd learned to love each other differently, who'd chosen partnership over possession, who'd built something real from the ashes of something broken. Roman caught her watching and smiled, a real smile, unguarded and genuine. He scooped Sophia up, balancing her on his shoulders despite her squeals of delight, and walked back toward Elena. What are you thinking about? He asked. How far we've come. How much has changed. Elena reached up to steady Sophia, who was trying to grab her mother's hair. How scared I was that day in the clinic, and how different everything is now. Do you regret it? Any of it? Roman's question was careful, like he was afraid of the answer. Elena considered this honestly, the fear, the complications, the impossible choices that had brought them here. No, she said finally, because all of it led to her, to this, to us learning how to be better than we were. She met his eyes over their daughter's head. We're not perfect, Roman. We probably never will be, but we're good enough. For her. for each other. That's what matters. Sophia chose that moment to grab both her parents' faces, pulling them together with the determined force of a 1-year-old who knew what she wanted. She babbled something unintelligible but clearly pleased with herself. And there, in the garden they'd built together, with their daughter between them, and the future stretching out in all its uncertain promise, Elena and Roman laughed. Not because everything was fixed or figured out, but because they'd learned that love didn't require perfection. It only required presence, choice, and the courage to keep building something beautiful from complicated materials. Their daughter grew up in that house, surrounded by the evidence of her parents' transformation. She learned that protection didn't mean possession, that love could be fierce without being suffocating, that people could change when they had reason enough to try. And years later, when Sophia asked about the scars on her father's knuckles or why there were so many locks on the doors, Elena and Roman told her the truth. Not the sanitized version, but the real story of fear and threat, and two people learning to be better than they'd been. Because their daughter deserved to know that love wasn't always easy, that families were built from hard work and harder choices, that protection sometimes looked like violence and freedom sometimes looked like staying. But most of all, she deserved to know that she was worth it. Every struggle, every compromise, every moment her parents chose to build instead of break. She was worth it all. And in the end, that was the only story that mattered.